She sat there on the cold floor behind bars, her back against the hard wall and her knees pulled close to her chest. And in the silence of that moment, she closed her eyes and all she could see were the faces of her parents. And she could feel the weight of everything she had thrown away, chasing a life that was never meant for her. And at that moment, she felt like the biggest fool in the world. Vivian was a 21-year-old lady, born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. If you were looking for the perfect example of a dedicated young woman in the church, Vivian was it. She never did things halfway, because whatever she committed to, she gave it everything she had, and the church was no exception. She was a proud member of the choir and she took the role very seriously. She never missed any rehearsal, and every Sunday she was in her position early. It did not matter if she had a long week or if she was not feeling her best. Vivian showed up. The choir director trusted her completely and often said that if every member had Vivian's attitude, the choir would be unstoppable. But it was not just the choir. Vivian was also active in prayer meetings and Bible study every week. Whenever the church planned an outreach or any kind of program, Vivian was always on the volunteer list. She never complained or made excuses. She just showed up and did the work quietly and faithfully. People in the church loved her for it. Some of them make it a point to walk to her parents after the service just to praise their daughter. And every single time, her parents smiled with so much pride. Her parents were strong, no-nonsense Christians who had built their home entirely on faith. And together, her parents had created a home that was full of love, but also structures. There were expectations in that house and all their children always had to meet every single one of them. After service one Sunday evening, some of the women in the church gathered outside as they usually did, chatting and laughing before heading home. One of the older women, Mama Tunde, shook her head slowly with a big smile on her face. "That's Vivian," she said. "That girl is something else. Did you hear her voice today during worship? Chai, God really blessed her." Another woman, Auntie Bisi, laughed and nodded. "Bless her, oh. And she is never absent. Rain, sun, it does not matter. She is always here. Her parents did really well, very well in fact, and God will reward them." That was Vivian's life. Pious, dedicated, faithful, and admired by everyone around her. She was the girl the church was proud of, the daughter her parents thanked God for, and the young woman her community held up as an example. To everyone who knew her, Vivian had it all together. But soon enough, everything was about to change, and nobody, not even Vivian herself, had any idea of what was coming. From the outside, Vivian's life looked perfect, and for a long time, even she believed it was. But somewhere along the line, something began to shift. It was not sudden, and it did not happen overnight. It was slow, quiet, and steady. Day by day, little by little, something inside Vivian began to crack. She was tired of waking up every day and doing the same things in the same order. Wake up, pray, church, come home, sleep, repeat. Every single day felt like a copy of the day before. Nothing new and nothing exciting. She loved God, and that was never the question. But she was beginning to feel like her entire life had been planned out for her, even before she had the chance to figure out what she wanted for herself. Every decision, every boundary, every rule, it had all been decided already. And Vivian had followed all of it for as long as she can remember. She had never complained, she had never rebelled, she just obeyed and kept moving. But now, for the first time, something was stirring inside her. Quiet questions were beginning to form in her mind. Questions she did not dare say out loud. Questions that made her feel almost guilty for even thinking them. She started noticing things that she had never paid much attention to before. Girls exact same age as her, living completely different. She would see them on her streets, laughing loudly, walking freely without a single care in the world. Online, They were dressed in fine clothes, going to Owambe's, hanging out with friends at nice places, and just living their lives on their own terms, answering to nobody. And in Vivian's mind, that was the exact life she needed. She watched them and wondered what it felt like to just be young and free, the way people are supposed to be. Of course, she never said any of this out loud. She just kept it buried deep inside her, and just kept showing up the way she always had. But on the inside, the envy and restlessness was growing. She wanted more, but she did not just know how to reach for it. And honestly, a part of her was not even sure she was allowed to want more in the first place. That was the hardest part, not the wanting, but the shame that came with the wanting. And as that feeling inside her was reaching its peak, something happened, something that would turn out to be the beginning of everything. 2 young ladies from Abuja moved into the neighborhood. Their names were Lisa and Becky. They had come to Lagos for reasons best known to them, and by chance, or maybe not by chance at all, they started attending Vivian's church. From the very first Sunday they walked in, people noticed them. They walked in together, dressed well, smelling nice, with a kind of confidence that filled the room before they even opened their mouths. They were friendly and they smiled at everyone, but there was something about them that was different, something that was hard to explain, but easy to feel. Lisa was the louder one of the two. She was bubbly and talkative, and the kind of person that could make friends with a stranger in 5 minutes flat. She had a way of talking that was fun and easy, making you easily comfortable around her. Becky, on the other hand, was calmer and more calculated. She did not talk as much as Lisa, but when she spoke, people listened. She had this quiet confidence about her that did not need to announce itself. And together, Lisa and Becky were the kind of girls that were hard to ignore. They settled into the neighborhood quickly, making themselves comfortable, started becoming familiar faces, and as weeks passed, people in the church began to warm up to them, including some of the young women Vivian's age. But Vivian, she was watching them from a distance. Something about Lisa and Becky fascinated her in a way she could not fully explain. Maybe it was the way they carried themselves, or maybe it was the fact that they reminded her of the kind of freedom she had been quietly craving for so long. Whatever it was, she had not spoken to them yet, but she had noticed them, and she knew that it was only a matter of time before their worlds crossed. What she did not know yet was just how much that crossing would cost her. Weeks passed, and Lisa and Becky continued to settle in the neighborhood. They were becoming more familiar faces now. People were warming up to them, and they seemed drawn to their energy. But Vivian continued to watch from a distance the way she always had. Then one Sunday after service, Lisa was in the middle of a group talking and making everyone laugh as she normally did. Becky was beside her, calm and smiling. And somehow, in the middle of all that movement and noise, Vivian ended up standing right next to them. Lisa turned and looked at her with a big, bright smile. "Vivian," she said like they had already been old friends. "We have been wanting to talk to you properly. You sang beautiful today, and that harmony you did, it was beautiful." Vivian laughed softly, a little caught off guard. "Thank you." Becky looked at her with those calm, knowing eyes. "You have a gift, seriously, and I love it for you." And just like that, a conversation started. Simple, easy, and comfortable in a way Vivian did not expect it. Lisa talked a lot and made everything feel light and funny. Becky listened and added things just at the right moment. And Vivian, who was usually quiet around new people, found herself talking and laughing more than she normally would. From there, their friendship started. After that Sunday, the three of them began to talk more regularly. At church, after service, during the week, and then one day, completely by coincidence, Vivian discovered that Lisa and Becky lived just 2 streets away from her. It felt almost too convenient to be accidental, but nobody questioned it, because it just made things easier. Now they were not just church friends, they were neighborhood friends too. The friendship grew quickly after that, faster than Vivian ever expected, because somehow the girls had a way of making you feel comfortable around them without even trying. Vivian enjoyed it, and for the first time in forever, she had something new in her life, something that did not feel like a routine. They brought a kind of energy into her world that she never experienced before, and she found herself always looking forward to seeing them. Now that they were close, Lisa and Becky talked about their lives in Abuja, the places they had been, the things they had done. They spoke about their experiences so casually, and Vivian was always quiet, taking it all in. One evening, the three of them were sitting together in Lisa and Becky's apartment. It was Vivian's third or fourth time visiting, so she was always comfortable there. The places had a different kind of vibe from her own home. Music playing softly in the background, nice things everywhere, and a freedom in the air that Vivian could not quite describe, but could definitely feel. Lisa was going through her phone and suddenly turned the screen towards Vivian. It was a video from a party. Lights, music, people dressed beautifully, laughing and having the time of their lives. "We went for something like this last month before we moved here," Lisa said casually. "Abuja parties are on a different level, oh, but Lagos ones are not bad at all, sha." Vivian looked at the screen. She could not lie to herself. It looked like a lot of fun. Becky glanced at her and asked, "Have you ever been to anything like that before?" Vivian shook her head slowly. "No, I have never really gone out like that." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Never? Never," Vivian said quietly. There was a short silence. Then Lisa leaned back and smiled. "One day, you will see what you have been missing." Vivian laughed it off that evening, but the image stayed with her long after she got home. The lights, the music, the people, the freedom. It stayed with her, and it would not leave. Lisa and Becky were patient. They did not rush her. They did not push. They just kept sharing their world little by little. A story here, a video here, a casual mention of plans they had for the weekend, and slowly, without even realizing it, Vivian's curiosity was turning into something stronger, something she could no longer just brush aside. Then one Friday evening, Lisa called her. "Vivian, we are going out tonight, just to chill. Come with us now." Vivian's stomach tightened immediately. "Go out where?" she asked. "Just a nice hangout, nothing serious. You will enjoy yourself." Vivian was quiet for a moment. Her mind was already calculating. Her parents would never agree. She had nothing to wear to something like that. She did not even know what she was supposed to do at a place like that. "I don't think I can," she said carefully. Becky's voice came on. "Vivian, you're 21. You deserve to have fun at least once. We will be with you the whole time. Nothing will happen, Joe." Vivian stood in her room for a long time after the call ended. She paced, she sat down, she stood up again, and every sensible part of her was saying no. But another part of her was saying something entirely different. "Just this once," she said to herself. And then she called them back and told them she was going to join them, having no idea what she just agreed to. That night, it was easy for her to deceive her parents. She told them she had a video to attend to, and they believed her because it was something everyone was used to. Then she slipped out. She got to Lisa and Becky's apartment with her heart already beating faster than normal. Lisa opened the door and immediately pulled her inside with excitement. "He actually came! I knew you would. Now we need to get you ready." Vivian looked around nervously. "Ready? I thought you said it was something small." Becky laughed from where she was sitting. "It is small, but you still need to look good. Come on." What happened in the next hour was something Vivian had never experienced before in her life. Lisa went through her wardrobe and pulled out an outfit for her. A dress, short, fitted, nothing like anything Vivian had ever worn or owned. Vivian held it and stared at it. "I can't wear this," she said quietly. "Why not?" Lisa asked simply. Vivian opened her mouth and closed it again. She had no answer that did not sound like something her mother would say. "Just try it on," Becky said calmly. "If you hate it, you would find something else." Vivian went into the room and put it on. When she came out, Both Lisa and Becky looked at her and wept quiet for a second. "Vivian," Lisa said slowly with her eyes wide, "you have been hiding all this under church clothes?" Vivian looked at herself in the mirror and froze. She did not recognize the girl staring back at her. She looked different. She looked older. She looked like someone with a completely different life. Then Becky sat her down and did her makeup, foundation, eyeliner, lip gloss, and the rest of them, step by step, carefully and skillfully. And when it was all done, Vivian looked in the mirror again. She could not explain it, but the girl in the mirror did not look trapped. She did not look like someone living in a loop. She looked like someone who was finally free, and for the first time, about to leave. "How do you feel?" Becky asked, watching her in the mirror. Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then she said softly, "Different." Lisa grinned. "Good different or bad different?" Vivian looked at herself one more time. "I don't know yet." They left the apartment at almost 11 o'clock at night. The air outside felt different to Vivian. Or maybe she was the one who felt different. The streets were alive in a way she had never seen. They got into a cab and Vivian sat by the window, watching the city go by. When they arrived, Vivian felt something she had never felt before in her life. A rush, a kind of aliveness that she did not have word for. Everything was loud and bright, full of energy, and for a moment, she stood there taking it all in. Lisa leaned close to her ear and said, "Welcome to the other side." And those words made Vivian so alive. She did not just like it, she loved it. They spent their time dancing, vibing, and connecting with random strangers. That was the night Vivian double life began. And the worst part was it had all been so easy. Too easy. She went out and came back and nobody had noticed a thing. The house was quiet when she returned. Her parents were still asleep. She changed her clothes, cleaned her face, and got into bed. And as she lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, she did not feel the guilt she expected to feel. She just kept replaying the night in her head over and over again. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she was ready to begin her double life. The second time they went out, it was a birthday party. One of Lisa's friends was celebrating and they had been invited. Lisa called Vivian 2 days before this, and this time, Vivian did not hesitate as long as she did the first time. She still felt the nervousness, but it was smaller and more manageable. This time, she lied about having an all-night prayer and Bible study with some friends, and her parents did not think twice before agreeing to it. This party was bigger than the first hangout, more people, louder music, and a fancier location. And this time, Vivian was more relaxed and confident. She moved with Lisa and Becky, greeted people, laughed, danced, and genuinely had a good time. At one point during the night, a group of young men came over to where the three of them were sitting. They were well dressed and clearly had money. One of them, a tall guy named Kelechi, sat beside Vivian and started a conversation. He was charming, funny, and easy to talk to. And by the end of the night, he had her number and promised to take her somewhere nice. Vivian went home that night with her heart still buzzing. The following weekend, Kelechi took all 3 girls out to a rooftop restaurant in Victoria Island, the kind of place Vivian had only ever seen on her phone screen. The view was stunning and looked quite expensive. He also brought 2 of his friends along, one for Lisa and one for Becky. They ate, laughed, enjoyed themselves, and at the end of the night, the guys paid for everything without blinking. Vivian had never experienced anything like it before. She was used to managing, but this meant spent money like it was nothing. And before the night ended, Kelechi pressed money into her hand. "For your transport," he said simply, like it was the most normal thing in the world. It was more money she had seen in a long time. And on the way home, she sat in the back of the cab and looked at the money in her hand, like she has never seen it before. But somewhere in her heart, she knew this was not the life she was supposed to be living. But she also could not deny how good it felt. The outings became more frequent after that. Once every 2 weeks became once a week. Once a week slowly became more than that. And the more they went out, the more they met people. Guys took them out to nice places, made sure they never spent their own money. Lisa and Becky had been doing this for a long time before Vivian came, so they knew exactly how to navigate that world. They knew who to talk to, where to go, how to carry themselves, and how to make sure they always came out every night better than they went in. Every outing was different. Every night brought something new, and every time Vivian came home happier than she left it. The money she was making on the side was changing things for her quietly. She could not bring designer bags home or wear expensive clothes to church without raising questions, so she kept things simple on the outside. But she had money now, more than she ever had, and it felt good to have it. Through all this, her double life remained perfectly intact. She never slacked in any way. She never came home smelling suspicious or looking out of place. She was disciplined about it in the same way she was disciplined about everything else in her life. She kept both worlds completely separate, and she managed them both with a skill that surprised even her herself. She was playing both roles so perfectly that sometimes she almost forgot which one was the real her. But the deeper she went, the further she moved from the person she used to be, and the further she moved, the darker the world around her became. She noticed it, but by this point, she had told herself so many times that everything was fine, that it had become so easy to ignore the warning signs. Then came the night that changed everything. One fateful Saturday, Lisa called Vivian in the afternoon. "There's a get-together tonight. Some guys we met last week are hosting, and girl, it's going to be big." Vivian had a small feeling she could not shake when Lisa said it. Something felt different about this one, but she was too excited to think, so she brushed it aside. And this time, making up excuses to her parents was no longer a problem, because it had become something she could do without having to think much. Soon, the three girls met, got dressed, and left with a car that was sent for them. They were driven somewhere inside Lagos that Vivian was not very familiar with. When they got there, the gathering was already going on, and there were many people inside. But the energy in that place was different from anywhere they had been before. It was heavier and more tensed. The men who were hosting them were not like the fun guys they usually hung out with. They were older, quieter, and they looked quite dangerous. "Who are these people?" Vivian whispered to Lisa in a low voice. "Relax, they're just businessmen," Lisa said casually. "Please loosen up and don't spoil the fun, no?" And then she continued dancing. Soon enough, Vivian started to vibe and just enjoy herself. She felt it was because she was new to that place, that's why she was feeling that way, which was normal. But it was until midnight that everything fell apart. The loud sound of gunshots came first, and then before anyone could fully understand what was happening, the doors burst open and everywhere became chaos. The police officers flooded the room from every direction. People were screaming, some were running, but there was nowhere to go. It turned out the men hosting the gathering were notorious drug dealers that the police had been tracking down for a long time. That night was the night they finally moved in, and everyone in that house, every single person, was caught in the net. Vivian froze. Her whole body went cold, and the next thing she knew was that she was handcuffed alongside with Lisa and Becky. Vivian sat there on the cold floor behind bars, her back against the hard wall, nails pulled close to her chest, and in the silence of that moment, she closed her eyes and all she could see were the faces of her parents, and she could feel the weight of everything she had thrown away, chasing the life that was never meant for her. And right there and then, she felt like the biggest fool in the world. The noise around her felt far away, like she was hearing it from underwater. Her mind was not in the police station at all. It was in a life she had carelessly walked away from, and all she could do was cry as she pressed her knees tighter to her chest. Hours passed, And then something unexpected happened. When the drug dealers were being questioned, they made it clear that the 3 girls and some other innocent persons had nothing to do with their operations, and that they had simply been invited as guests. For whatever reason, they had enough decency in them to make sure that was on record. It was not a quick process. It took time and it took money. But eventually, 2 weeks later, Vivian, Lisa, and Becky were released on bail. But freedom from cell did not mean freedom from what had already happened. Because while they were inside, the news was already moving. People talked, phones rang, and messages were sent. And by the time they were out, the story had already reached everyone who knew them. The look on her father's face when Vivian walked through the door was something she could never forget in her entire life. He did not shout or raise his hand. He just looked at her. And that look was worse than any punishment she could have imagined. Her mother sat in the corner of the sitting room with her hand clasped together and her eyes red from crying. And the silence in the house was the loudest thing Vivian had ever heard. People who knew and admired her in church and in the neighborhood were all disappointed in a way that was heavy and real. Her family's name, which her parents had spent their whole life building with integrity, had been dragged into something they had never deserved. The shame was everywhere, and there was no escaping it. But in the middle of all of it, something else came to light. The story of Lisa and Becky did not begin in Lagos, and the real reason they left Abuja was not just for a fresh environment. The truth was that they had been running away from the life that had already started destroying them back home. They had been deep in that world. The parties, the dangerous men, the fast money, and all of it had consequences. And those consequences were catching up with them fast. Things had gotten so bad that staying in Abuja was no longer an option. So they had packed up and left. Lagos was supposed to be their fresh start. But as they say, you can only change your location, not your bad habits. They had brought their old world with them without even fully realizing it. And Vivian, who was simply a curious girl standing close, got pulled right into it. When Vivian discovered this, she was devastated. Because the truth was, before Lisa and Becky ever showed up, she had already been longing for something more. And they showed up just at the right time to help her feed it. And that realization hurts more than anything else, because she could not fully blame them. She had made her own choices, and now here she was, living with the consequences of every single one of them. In that moment, Vivian understood something she could never unlearn, and it's that the life she had been chasing was never really free. She had been paying for it all along, with her integrity, her family name, and the trust of everybody who had ever been proud of her. But she had just been too blind to see it. And the truth is, wanting more from life is not a sin. But there is a big difference between seeking more and losing yourself completely in the process. Vivian learned that difference the hard way. And no party, money, or freedom was worth what she had lost. Vivian's story is not just a story. It's a mirror. And if you see yourself anywhere in it, it's not too late to choose differently. If the story touched you, share it with someone who genuinely needs to hear it today. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.